The impacts of the climate crisis are becoming more evident and alarming, especially for climate vulnerable countries. In our previous discussions with experts and advocates, we've heard about the far reaching negative consequences of our dependence on fossil fuel and unsustainable economies. It is clear that we need to address the climate emergency and that the youth will play an important role in the years to come. In this culminating episode, we'll hear more from our young panelists. Where do we go from here, and how are we going to commit to our call for climate justice? Welcome back, everyone. I'm Christine Sabilio, a journalist and advocate, and this is Saving Asia. For our final episode, we'll be checking in with students who have been with us throughout this journey. We've learned about the science behind climate change, the impacts of the crisis on human rights, the importance of climate action, and the need for an economy that is beneficial for the planet and our future generations. Again, we have Patricia from the Philippines, Jalan and Tristan from Indonesia, and Young and Jess from Malaysia. Hello, guys. I guess we should start with what your main key takeaways are from the interview series.
I think what struck me most from all the discussions throughout the experience with, meeting with the experts and hearing their thoughts and their experiences with this journey of protecting the environment. I think what struck me most from all the discussions was the need for us to be able to create a system and incorporate with the government to be able to create policies and laws that is not only beneficial to the big corporations, but most beneficial for the communities. We can't do it alone by ourselves. We need the government to go about whatever it is that we need to do. Also, I think we need to focus on decarbonizing all countries. All this we should do in a just transition and in a socially inclusive way.
Yeah, definitely balancing the interests of people, but at the same time ensuring that everyone is accountable, do what is right based on their own responsibilities.
I would like to go next. So after all these sessions, other than learning some extra information about climate change as well as how climate justice is done, there's hope. Science itself is enough to persuade government in order to change. But of course, all this is not just like one person can do it. It's like climate change and how to mitigate it is not simple. You need to have more people, more like-minded people to do it.
It's not really a simple fact that we need to change now. There are different responsibilities, different actions that must be done by the different actors involved in this. How about the rest? Could you share with us your takeaways as well?
We need external pressure and also internal change maker. Like one of the panelists say this, I think it really summarizes the whole experience, because we can come up with the framework, but if the government don't put in effort to concentrate, like pouring in money, resources, manpower, ensuring sustainability in the action or the plans moving forward, integrating green technology, even if the people know this knowledge but they don't act on it, it's quite futile. So in the very end, I think what we need to do is really to hold the government accountable, elect people who will actually put all of these ideas from the discussion, from the climate scientists, professional opinion, into action and policy to drive a bigger impact, large scale. And also my key takeaway is that we get to hear directly from the people who suffer firsthand from climate disasters. And it really adds to the humanizing aspect of it, because most of us kind of like hear about all the facts and figure and we forget people on the ground are suffering through it. So I think it's really important that we all step back and literally look at how the world is in chaos right now because of how drastic the impact are of climate change on especially like the low carbon country, even though as they said, like they contribute the least but suffer the most. So it's really important that we take away all of this lesson and really try to drive change as soon as possible. So lesser people will like need to go through all of that trauma, all of that basic loss of human rights. So yeah, that's all for me.
Yeah, the bottom line is putting the people at the front, right? And learning how we can help and prevent these things from happening again, especially the climate emergencies that affect these areas. Tristan or Jalan, I believe you're next.
From these 4 episodes, I learned many new things about climate justice, about the importance to do a collective movement to fight climate injustice. I have also come to understand how climate injustice is caused by human activities, by our activities, and has a huge impact on on human rights, especially for vulnerable communities. It gave me a lot of positive energy and made me realize that I'm not alone. I have so many friends around Southeast Asia, around the world, in fighting for climate justice. And the most interesting discussion for me fell on the 4th episode, where in the episode it discussed about the green economy, which is related to what I learned in college. I feel that I got a lot of support from the experts to dig further, to learn more, and then encourage more parties to implement this green economic concept. Nothing is easy indeed, but when we want to start, then we are the champions. That's all.
Thank you, Jalan. How about for you, Tristan? How was it?
I was completely lack of information regarding to climate change at first, but I understand there are many kinds and types of climate change, and I can imagine how the future, the Earth, and the world will be if everyone realized how important this issue was. And this prevention also brought many benefits to the world. I understand that this action isn't easy because we need more people to climb this climate justice and extra work to do to make the world better. And with a lot of perspective, a lot of experiences people shared, we must realize that we need act now, even though it's not as easy as it seems, but I believe it'll get easier if we can work together.
Thank you, Tristan. Many of you already mentioned this. What for you is climate justice? Now that you've heard the different perspectives, the different movements, what is climate justice? How do you understand it now?
I was the president of an environmental organization in college in UST. I kind of learned about climate justice already, like before this event. But then after this, I was able to widen my horizons on this certain issue. Well, for me, climate justice is about being able to advocate for the environment, like fighting for it. If you put yourself in the position of, like, for example, I'm the earth, it's like we need to provide the environment with enough justice for it to be protected and for it to prosper and not harmed by these many people. I think of it that way. It's an issue involving the society, the government, and all those big corporations. It's not merely about climate change. It's about, protecting the people that are affected by climate change and holding the big corporations accountable and all those inflicting harm greatly to the environment.
I wanted to ask Jess. Jess, you're also involved in some youth groups. Is there something new that you learned about climate justice now?
For me, actually, climate justice, as Patricia said, it's not just environmental issue that we see. It's not just like scientific things, the change in the climate pattern, etc. It is centered around ethical issue, human rights issue. So I did learn a lot more about how intersectional all of these things are, because I walk in with an idea of what's going on here and there, but the panelists, the professional climate scientists, they really give us a holistic view of how this is like a snowball effect. If one country does this, it really impacts the marginalized community across the world, like half the world part, things like that. I think what I do take away most is like how to think on like a larger scale and look at it from a bigger picture compared to just like from my own personal experience.
Thanks, Jess. In our previous episode, we talked about how certain companies, how certain countries and governments should be held accountable for their actions or inaction when it comes to our climate. So that's an interesting aspect as well of climate justice. For the rest of you, do you have any insights on that, or would you like to add anything about your perspective of climate justice?
for me, I also feel like I learned a lot other because like in my course we learn about climate justice and climate change, but we are learning it based on the scientific facts. So it's like basically we learn all the science, but not really the other aspects. So it makes me it's an eye opener for me because this climate change is actually like a domino effect. So it's like if there's one thing get affected, then the rest of the world will get affected.
I agree with Patricia, Jess, and Young that climate justice is when a small issue but gives a big impact. And when we feel the impact of climate change as a victim, and we deserve human rights, deserve to live as normal as others do. And I think not only humans, but the environment and the world needs justice too. I think that's the climate justice.
In my opinion, climate justice is how we provide comfort not only for humans but for Mother Earth. How do we provide comfort not only for the privileged owner but for all, for the children, for the workers, for the animals, and for the greenery that is also dependent on capable people like us. And climate justice also talks about the portion of the movement. If we are small, we can move small, and if we are big, we can do less. So we should be a big one. That's all.
Thank you, Jalan. There was this one episode where we talked with some experts about climate justice and climate action. I remember we were discussing about the different generations and how we all need to do our part and how we also need to communicate with different generations and different subgroups within our peers, right? So the next question I think would be interesting. How do you think you will be able to influence those around you? To involve them in our fight for climate justice. After hearing everything that our experts and advocates said, do you now have like a new tactic, or did you learn something new about how to communicate better?
In my university here in the Philippines, I was able to connect with a lot of people. I was able to, communicate with different generations also. One that really worked was to really lead by example. Here at home, I'm the only one who advocates for the environment. Like my parents or like my other family members are not really into what I believe in. So I try my best to really not just tell them what to do, but to really show them that I'm doing this because it's for a good cause. It's for us. As simple as segregating our wastes, something like that. I do it all the time. And now my mom and my sister already follows me. Like they do their part in cleaning our plastic wastes and keeping them to donate later on. I think you need to meet halfway, and it's very important that we approach them in a way that is still very proper but still powerful but still respectful. With the different materials that we have or resources like the internet, the social media, we can reach many people in just a click or in just a few seconds. We should use these resources in its maximum capability for us to be able to connect with everyone and reach more people and inspire more people to be with us in this lifelong journey of protecting the environment.
You have two good points there. Leading by example, it's one thing to say, to tell people what to do. Another thing to actually show that you're actually living a life that is more sustainable and thinking about your carbon emissions or carbon footprint, for example. And it's a good point. The second point is that it's not just respect, I think. It's actually thinking about how putting yourselves in other people's shoes and how they would want to be talked to. The young people are usually brash, right? You're right. There's a bit of sometimes older people see us as aggressive. But later on in life, you realize that there are other ways to communicate as well. So that's an interesting thing to look at. How about you guys? How about the others? Did you think of something similar, or do you have some insights as well?
They have the wealth of information, knowledge, and experience. And from the younger generation, we have the wealth of technology, of like newer ways of thinking and trying to be more aware of the world situation because of how well connected we are today from the internet. So if we combine both of these together, it's a really powerful way to drive big impact. So yeah, I felt like as what she said, like the way we communicate now is really different compared to like different generation. There may be also elements of ageism where they kind of like think we are immature or something, but maybe we are, but we do have the passion. So if we combine their ideas and their knowledge with our passion and work together, just set apart all of these like other petty issues, I felt like it's going to be a really powerful way to really act on climate action.
I think it's also exciting to think about it that way, thinking of creative ways to reach out to the other generations. Me as a communicator, I always see that as a challenge, reaching out to both the young and the old, and different tactics on how to go about it. Are you also interested in trying to bridge the generational gap, or perhaps you have insights on how to communicate with your peers?
Technology for us is like a very powerful tool. So it's like it is good and wise that we use this to our advantages, especially towards us Generation Z. Yeah, because like for Generation Z, it's easier to be influenced because we can use like social media, games, music, or any other Gen Z related stuff to gain their awareness and gain their interest. As for older generations, it's a bit tough because unless you have to communicate with them properly, like from my family, for me, I tend to not talk to them about climate change, like very boring, like those scientific, because like they surely won't understand. So it's better to talk to them via layman term, which is like the simplest. But for me, I personally tend to use like scare tactic. I don't know, it's it's like tell them that, oh, if you don't do this, something will happen. But yeah, I know it's kind of bad and it's yeah, I feel bad for doing that also, but at the same time it kind of works for my family. But yeah, I understand that communicating better, it's also useful. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Young. That's interesting, the scare tactic. I think journalists use that a lot. This will happen in 50 years. Your house will be no longer standing on land because of sea level rise, stuff like that, right? But I think some of the experts we've talked to previously as well mentioned the emphasis on solutions as well, or more hopeful messaging. So that's something, a balancing of those two might be interesting to look at as well. How about just Jalan and Tristan? Do you have similar thoughts, or you have some creative ideas as well?
I just agree with what Jess, Young, and Patricia say. A simple action that is repeated and continues to be seen over time, even strangers will become commonplace and become a trend, maybe.
At my school, maybe I attend many organizations, both inside and outside the school. And some of the events created by those organizations are environmentally related. And we also have group chat to discuss existing issues, especially for the environment. And something schools also have open competitions that everyone can watch, so that the benefits of this competition can be conveyed. Examples like I said in episode 4 of Green Economy, and my team made eco-friendly business ideas. And I'm sure it wasn't just me and in my area who held all of that. In addition, we as youth are very accustomed to social media use, so we can easily share about this to everyone in the world.
Thanks, Tristan. This will be my last question, so feel free to add any more messages that you want to include. But this is a more personal question for you guys. I remember there was an episode where it felt overwhelming, thinking about the impact of climate change and how it can affect us in our future. And I remember some of you, thinking about will your kids even have futures, right? Or would I even want to have children of my own, given what can happen in the future because of basically an existential crisis, or We think, I think, and the youth has to carry that burden. What are you thinking after learning all of that? What is your commitment now for the planet Earth? And what do you plan to do from here on onwards?
I have always been very concerned about the environment. So I think like what can we do? You know, the big corporation seems very out of reach for just like youngsters like us, but we collectively do have a voice. So if there's a petition to sign, to hold them accountable, to take action, sign it. If you are at voting age, vote. Or if you are not, educate people who are in voting age and like let them know how do you make a more informed decision in voting someone into the office where they can be concerned about the environment and actually make some change with it. And if you're really young, the most you can do is one step at a time. If you have local NGO that helps out with any little thing, maybe it's educating people about wildlife conservation, about climate change. Maybe it's, you know, planting trees. Maybe it's like doing more zero waste lifestyle, or you know, just like changing a diet, or just generally making conversation about this, making people more aware and concerned about this. Even if we do not reach our goals or something, it could be way better than not doing anything at all.
And there's a silver lining. There's a lot of hope in different countries, different movements. So that's definitely something to look forward to. Who wants to go next?
Even today, it's still overwhelming for me to think about, the future and how we can mitigate climate change as a community and as the youth. But through the whole experience, through the whole talks that we were able to listen to and learned from, I was just like Jess. I was hopeful again to that to learn that we're not alone in this fight, and there has been many projects and actions taken by these beautiful people already, and we shouldn't lose hope. And I think what we can do as youth is to, just like what said Jess said, that we should never stop, like just continue speaking up, continue voicing out whatever it is in your mind. Keep on pushing forward until you get what you want to see in the world.
You guys at such a young age already feel the burnout of advocacy work. And that's something that I hope the future generation would not have to experience. But it's great to see, like, seeing how all of us from different countries, but we all have the same experiences and we have similar goals as well. So that's something hopeful and inspiring to see right now. How about you, Young? What is your, do you have a new commitment when it comes to climate justice now?
For me, I would also agree with what Jessie and Patricia mentioned, like hearing what all the experts have mentioned based on their findings, and also seeing so many passionate people here. I feel like, yeah, there's still hope, there's still hope in this matter. And like for me, because like after hearing this, I actually did like trying to do like small steps or like baby steps, other than creating awareness, because for now I think for younger generation what we can do most is spreading awareness, because social media, WhatsApp, everything, it's very powerful now. So other than that, I will probably step up my game also a little bit, like, because like for now what I did are just like reduce straw usage, reduce plastic usage, this. But yeah, I'll try to do more, and also advocate, and also create awareness more, but of course not to be too aggressive at the same time.
I hope I can make like books for kids and then create a lot of movement that gives rewards, because I think kids that really like gifts, it's easier to reach, and they can be our communicators in their environment when we can't do it alone. Just it.
Thanks, Jalan. That's a good perspective. Sometimes it can get paralyzing, being overwhelmed by the enormity of this problem. But yeah, you've already mentioned small steps, how you can start. So that's something to just take it a day at a time, right? So that's a good way to look at it. What can you say to the youth, those younger than you, perhaps those who who are suffering or who have survived climate catastrophes, or who might not be or might be in privileged situations that are not that effective? There are different experiences of the youth right now. What are your message to them when it comes to climate change and climate crisis? What should they think about right now?
Learning, keep on doing the things that you think are right, keep on advocating for the environment, or whatever it is that you're advocating for, keep doing it.
I agree that the people who are directly affected, the burden of educating others shouldn't be on them anymore. And those who are privileged, where we have all of these resources right in front of us, we have no excuse but to take some effort and try to understand the situation better so we know how to help others. A lot of the older generation, particularly parents, they think that these issues are out of hand. Like, this is too big. It's too big for you. Like, this is not something you have control over. But just believe that your voice matter, because individual voices may be very tiny and can't make a big impact, but like on a collective global scale, it is immeasurable. So yeah, don't lose hope and never forget how powerful your voice can be.
Like, there's hope and there's ways to do it, but of course you have to start now, which is another message I would say. Like, climate change is real and it affects not just one place, it affects the whole world eventually. So it's better to start now than never. Like, 1% is better than 0%.
I also want to give a message to people who have privilege and have plenty of opportunities to make a big change to the world, that we are just human beings. Or even I, as a high school student who loves nature, know how importance of this climate crisis and want to change. All we need now is your help, your voice, your action, your awareness to voicing this climate issue, because your little action is needed, is matter, and your little action can make a big change to the world.
Don't be tired of studying. You don't have to study at school to be a climate hero. Try to write what makes you sad. Try to write what you want to do. Continue to be curious. Ask questions and don't give up. I'm sorry it might be difficult for you to do this. Maybe it will be difficult to get answer to each of your questions. But believe me, here we continue to believe that you will be extraordinary people. And even though now everything seems so difficult, and to everyone, please help us to continue to fight for climate justice with your voice. That's all.
I think that's important to note, that everybody can really contribute to this. No matter how small your contribution is or how small your start is, eventually, if we all just act, it will be able to turn the tide and address this climate crisis. So thank you so much for all of your inputs and insights. Your answers give us hope that the younger generation are well equipped and are very capable to take on the torch of calling for climate justice. So thank you again for your time and spending time with us all throughout the 5 episodes. It has been very valuable. You've learned from our experts, but we've also learned a lot from you guys. Thanks so much. I'm Christine Sabilio. Thank you for listening to Saving Asia. Join our community of climate advocates through Climate Tracker Asia's WhatsApp group or by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our series has ended, but our mission continues, and we hope we inspired you to take action to save not just Asia, but our planet.